Let's talk about artifact weapons. Just like a rubbish movie reboot, our characters cropped up, we found the original cast of characters that everyone loved, and then we stole all of their toys. And then we watched them get roasted, disenchanted, sent over to the writer's naughty corner, and if we didn't have someone else's weapon, then hey, no worries. It turned out that just about every mystery and riddle in the game world led to some sort of really shiny bit of treasure that would have been really handy a few expansions ago. And then, really, as it turned out, Tyrion and co, they were a bunch of posers anyway. They didn't even bother to grind out a smidgen of artifact power. All that it took was some random players to come in and these weapons were suddenly 10 times as powerful. Now, since then, of course, we put a stack of work into our weapons, we've unlocked some really cool skins, and the weapons have even, they've augmented how our classes play in terms of mechanics, pretty much adding some of the minor vanilla talents back in. Now, as much as the AP grind didn't always work out, I think the weapons themselves are pretty damn cool and quite the success. So, how are we going to deal with their removal? What is going to come next? Will you have to manically unlock every artifact skin for every spec in the game before the next expansion? Probably not, and I mean, anyway, the substances needed for such a feat would probably get this video demonetized if I mentioned them. But right now, we've got the most shiny, badass weapons in the in-game universe right in our hands. So unless Ian, hacks our accounts and deletes them, how are Blizzard going to get us to give up our artifacts in the new expansion? Well, first of all, they're probably just going to nerf the shit out of them past level 111, just like how they nerfed the past expansion legendaries. Hell, I'd imagine that'll even happen to our current legendaries as well. But really though, what's going to get us excited, really hyped, to swap over to something new? I mean, hell, especially for the Shadow Priests, they're going to be giving up their Naifu for this. Well, power, of course. It's an MMO, that's the only reason we're here. But what source of power could possibly match our artifact weapons? I mean, not only have we stuffed them full of various AP nuggets all expansion, but the things themselves are supposed to be crazy powerful anyway. Some of them are running off bits of an old Naru and all that crazy stuff. Well, the next expansion can kind of do one better. I think we already know what's going to happen. So, spoiler warning. Well, here's the thing. The new expansion has pretty much unsurfaced a new source of power, but I'm going to let the meme wizard himself explain.
If the blood of Azeroth also proves to be a source of such strength, those who seek to rule this world will stop at nothing to possess it. The days ahead may be dark indeed.
Okay, can you think of a more powerful source of energy in the Warcraft universe? I sure can't, and when you look through the lore, it seems like this stuff really is the good shit. I mean, hell, this stuff was so powerful that it's really caused us no end of bother in the past. Silly old Aman'Thul smashing Yasharaj into the earth caused a wound in the earth that would be known eventually would be known as the Well of Eternity because that lifeblood was seeping out. And when you think about it, well, actually, it's a bit gnarly because this whole Well of Eternity was literally powered by blood, but anyway, it was so powerful that it tipped the Legion off to the existence of our world and, well, led to a whole bunch of things happening in the past, though some stuff got retconned, so let's just not get into it. Even look at what happened when Illidan used a drop of the stuff to create the second well. So yeah, this is super powerful stuff. Narratively, I think it makes sense as well. If Legion was a passing of the buck from the old cast of heroes to the player characters, then I think it's only reasonable to imagine that the next expansion will have us forge a new identity for ourselves. Now, what better way to do that than to craft our own weapons? We could kick the expansion off by creating a weapon and then spend all of that expansion upgrading it and augmenting it. Now, since our artifacts were like pre-existing lore items, sometimes they were a bit restricted. Well, with this, they're not based on pre-existing lore, there's complete creative freedom on how they can function. I'd love to see players be able to, say, customize the enchant color and the tint, even, similar to an armor die system, but for your new crafted weapon. I don't know how that would be technically, but I think it would be really cool, and finding a way to double down the visual customization would really make it feel like that weapon is yours, and I think that would be really exciting. Now, this is going to sound bizarre, but if you think about a lot of shooters, right, they have, attachments you can bolt on. I wonder if Blizzard would ever do that to your weapon, or if that would just be too much of a technical, resource problem, but still, I think customization is king. Now, as for growing our new weapon's power, well, come on, they're going to have to make it feel different from the Legion system. Like, would you be interested in just seeing the same thing be copied over? I don't really think I would be. The artifact powering up process in Legion was very linear and very deep. Basically, you would progress along this sort of single path for ages, getting more and more power as you went. I would actually prefer a system that was less deep, but more wide, almost a bit like the PvP talents, where you unlock a full set of stuff pretty quickly, but then you can unlock more options as time goes on, allowing for, new playstyles to emerge, and it could also be easily added to in a patch. And then, the more that they can keep, I think, the feeling of unlocking the first 31 traits in Legion, the better. I think that was fun. And then, ideally, the less it feels like concordance grinding, the better. They could also work in some of the really cool legendary item utility effects into our weapons, which again would allow for some real, cool gameplay customization that you really feel when you're playing the game instead of just slightly more numbers. So that's what I think is going to happen to the system that replaces artifacts, but what about the artifact weapons that you've already got? I think it would be a bit awkward if Thrall just suddenly starts a letter-writing campaign on behalf of has-been heroes to try to get us to hand the damn things back. I mean, there's a few cases that could be cool, but still. And also, I think it's not like every spec's going to have a specific goodbye to their weapon, and it would be a bit strange to log in one day and see all the damn things have just disappeared. Unless it's Xalatath.
I can be very easy to lose. Remember that.
Yeah, imagine sinking so low in life that even your imaginary knife dumps you. Now, I've looked on the PTR, and it doesn't seem like there's any big calamitous event that causes us to lose our artifacts, unless Blizzard are hiding it in the data, though I suppose that would have given them a handy way to lore-wise get rid of them. Something could still happen though. Blizzard have said that 7.3 is kind of it for major content patches for Legion, but that there will likely be one or two smaller patches. What if one of these minor patches covers the loss of our weapons? Hell, right, think about this. Imagine if the pre-expansion event for the next expansion was a questline or some sort of event in which that's where we lose our weapons. I think that would be a hell of a cool way to get people really fired up and ready to tackle whatever comes next, and also get excited to make your own weapon. Would they likely, literally get rid of our weapons? I mean, it would be a pretty strange game if the lore and the gameplay always had to perfectly line up. So what I think could happen is, we'll just see artifacts get relegated to a dusty sort of corner of your bank, and their effects will just be nerfed into the ground so they don't mess up balance. Or at least, be deactivated by the time you hit the new cap. So lore-wise, I think maybe our weapons are gone, but in terms of the game, it's just sitting in your bank. But what about all of the current unlocks surrounding artifacts? Well, it seems like Blizzard is not going to ask you to unlock everything before Legion ends. That would be quite a lot of work, though I could see why it would make sense. Still, we don't have any specifics, but they did say that most skins will be obtainable after Legion ends, so chances are you will be able to do a fair bit of transmogging with them after the fact, though we still have to see how stuff works out. And there are some awkward things as well, like spec-specific transmogs, stuff like that. How is that going to work given how our weapons function currently? Then also, I want to bring this up. WoW is moving to Shadow and Light being a core theme, with the idea being that they're not 100% black and white, good and evil. We saw a bit of this happen with the Crucible of Shadow and Light in 7.3, and it does make me wonder if we'll see more of this with our weapons. I mean, if WoW is basically giving up the idea of old-style weapons, perhaps the expansion after the next one has us, creating an artifact or something like that, out of, pure light, pure void, because after all, technically, they are the, fundamental forces of the universe. They're basically the things that kind of clashed together, created the Warcraft version of the Big Bang. Though that's all a bit speculative and far off. But still, moving on from, basically Frostmourne to a random-ass pirate's cutlass from the South Seas would be a bit odd in the next expansion, but we can't rule out the idea of having regular weapons instead of artifacts. After all, the artifacts were just a cool lore way of bolting on a new progression system, so they could do something closer to the Path of the Titans and just not have it attached to gear. Though I've got to admit, it does sound less cool than us forging our own weapons, so I'm going to put my bets on that. Now, I did bring up Xalatath a few times already. Blizzard could have a lot of fun with her. She even warns us about how easy she can be to lose. I mean, come on, this is a knife that's got its own mind, and it kind of serves our true enemy on the down low. The old gods didn't want Legion destroying Azeroth, so it makes total sense that she'd be sent to sort of help us out defending the planet. But after that, we're not needed, so what's Xalatath going to do? I think having them do something, specific for that weapon would just be a really, really cool thing. And of course, kind of heartbreaking for some of those poor Shadow Priests. But there you go, that is my thoughts on artifacts, how they're going to be in the next expansion, what's going to happen to our current ones. I think it's pretty exciting, the idea of Blizzard doing some of these endgame progression systems. Hopefully they've learned a lot from Legion, and in the future, I think as long as the progression stuff is sort of decently fun, it would be really cool if they just double down on customization and making that be something that you can really feel proud of. But there you go, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you think they're going to do with the artifact system in the next expansion, and with that, I will see you next time.